The one that you go.
Yes, peace and harmony. Oh, can you hear? Can you hear? We'll all be singing for joy in peace and harmony. Yes, peace and harmony. Oh, can you hear? Can you hear? We'll all be singing for joy in peace and harmony. Yes, peace and harmony. Peace and harmony.
Hello, good evening, welcome. I'm so glad you're joining us this evening to celebrate the launch of Sinister Wisdom's 2024 calendar. I'm Julie Enzer, and I'm happy to welcome you to this evening's, I'm saying reading, but we're really sharing and talking with artists in the Sinister Wisdom community. And I'm really excited about it. And I will tell you a little bit more about it before I turn the program over to Bell Pitkin, who will be facilitating this evening. But before we begin our formal program, it has been our custom to spend a moment for a land acknowledgement. And this moment for many of us is particularly potent as we are in a time of war in the Middle East. I'm mindful of the many layers of conflict in Israel and Palestine, and I know that at this time, many of us are mourning the loss of life, the continued occupation of Palestine by Israel, and the ongoing war and conflict. As we pause for this land acknowledgement, I want to ask us to raise up our voices for peace at this painful time. In the United States and around the world, many of us are on occupied, unceded land. I am in what is now Dover, Florida, traditional homelands and territories of the Seminole. I invite you to insert into the chat your location and acknowledge the land on which you live as we pause to recognize these histories of war and colonization, and to imagine and work for a world where we have a fair and equitable distribution of resources, and a world where we can find ways to honor one another and live in peace. Thank you. We have an hour of celebration planned this evening. We'll wrap up at the top of the hour, about 8 o'clock on the East Coast, including time for our traditional dance number at the end. To get us started, you all, as I look around who's in the room, you all know everything about Sinister Wisdom. So I just want to highlight our calendar, which I think all of you probably have in hand as well, and the current issue of the journal Sinister Wisdom 130, We Teach Sex to Everyone, edited by Christy Lynn Ballooney and July West Hale. As a part of the, as has become another of our traditions, the fall issue carries the Sinister Wisdom badge, which I'll hold up here, which ties to the theme of our calendar. This year, it's radical creativity. It is an art image done by Wendy Cadden from Sinister Wisdom, an earlier issue that I've forgotten, I think Sinister Wisdom 19. I was looking at my poster with all of the covers on it. And we make a badge out of it, and we then put that same image on the front of the calendar. That's what we've been doing for the last couple of years. And we're going to tell you how the calendar project began and how it evolved as a part of our program this evening. For folks who are not current subscribers, I do invite you to sign up for a subscription today. And if you're able to become a monthly sustainer to the journal, our monthly sustainers receive the calendar free each year that we do it. And I also send out emails every month when their gift comes in so that they get behind the scenes details of what's happening at Sinister Wisdom. We are kicking off our fall fundraiser. That is one of the projects I was working on this afternoon, preparing the direct mail that goes out to all of the addresses we have of women around the country and around the world, asking them to support Sinister Wisdom. I'm always grateful at this time of year for the many ways that lesbians lift up and support our work at Sinister Wisdom. This evening, I particularly want to appreciate Bell Pitkin, who worked on the calendar this year, came up with the theme, curated the artwork, wrote all of the content for it, and made this beautiful calendar happen. I'm also appreciative to Bell because visual art's always been an important part of Sinister Wisdom, but I feel like under my curatorship and stewardship of the journal, I've done very little with it because I know very little about art and visual language. But Bell and other volunteers have been energizing our engagements with visual arts, and for that, I'm extraordinarily grateful. So thank you, Bell, not only for the calendar, but for also the visual work that you're doing more broadly, including putting together tonight's program for Sinister Wisdom. Few housekeeping notes. Please keep your microphone muted throughout the program. We will mute you if we detect noise. As the program proceeds, if you want to show appreciation for readers, agree with things that people are saying, feel free to wave your hands, give us jazz hands, and also use the reaction emojis on Zoom. Feel free to test that out. You also are welcome to use the chat. Some of the best things of all of our events happen in the chat, and we do share the chat as a part of the recordings at the Sinister Wisdom website. On technical assistance this evening is Max. You can chat with Max if you have questions or difficulties with anything that's happening in the program. And as you see and hear, we are recording the event this evening. We'll make it available either tomorrow or Thursday at sinisterwisdom.org/calendar. We're putting that link into the chat. So now I'm going to turn the program over to Bell Pitkin, who will be our moderator and interlocutor this evening. Bell came to Sinister Wisdom as an intern, which is a great way that more than one person speaking this evening came to Sinister Wisdom. And it's been a great way that Sinister Wisdom has been growing our community. Bell stayed on after her summer internship last year to work on the calendar. Bell has already committed to doing next year's calendar, for which I am incredibly grateful. And Bell, it's just been a real pleasure to work with you. I'm thrilled to welcome you this evening, and I look forward to the material that you have put together for us to talk about and think about tonight. Thank you. I give you Bell Pitkin.
Thank you so much, Julie, and thank you so much to everyone for taking the time out of your evening to join me in celebrating the launch of the 2024 Sinister Wisdom calendar, which I have right here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Belle. I'm an artist and a photographer currently based in Charlotte, North Carolina. And as Julie mentioned, I first became involved with Sinister Wisdom, not quite as an intern. I first became involved with Sinister Wisdom in 2021 after I submitted my art to the journal. And then I realized I loved Sinister Wisdom's mission so much, I dedicated a summer interning with Julie. And then a year later, I've stayed. I've remained a part of this community, working to really uplift the voices and visions of lesbian artists everywhere. As an artist myself, celebrating the diversity and beauty of lesbian art across all mediums is something incredibly important to me. And this is why I was thrilled when Julie asked if I'd be interested in curating the 2024 calendar. Immediately, I knew I wanted to use the calendar as a platform to showcase the incredible work being produced by so many incredible contemporary lesbian artists. As I first began working on the project, I realized I wanted to reflect on the importance of art as a tool for lesbian resistance, self-reflection, and community. I wanted to curate a body of work which was radical, in both philosophy and technique, but also in its representations of the lesbian identity. The artists included in this calendar do just that. They honor the legacies of Dyke artists who came before them and are creating lasting visions for all who will come next. So now I'd like to offer my sincere thanks to the artists featured in the calendar, whose names I'll read now: Natalie King, Kimani Johnson, Juno Rosenhaus, Clarity Haynes, Imensidades, Ariane Balachandran, Rai Essie, Mila Kuda, Imogen Cleaverly, Emerald Rapard Deniston, Alexa B. Hulse, and Verlena L. Johnson. If you're interested in purchasing the calendar, you can do so on our website at sinisterwisdom.org/calendar. And a link should be dropped in the calendar in the chat shortly. And now I'd like to welcome Sinister Wisdom board member and the creator of the first Sinister Wisdom calendar, Sarah Youngblood Gregory, to speak about the origins of the calendar and our plans for the future.
Hi, can you hear me? Cool. Okay, it's great to be here. Thanks so much, Belle and Julie. It's so much fun to see different people kind of take the same project and run with it and see how the calendar has changed over the years. I, like Julie, am not a super visual arts savvy person, so it's been a lot of fun to see Belle develop the calendar, and really it's just been so exciting. So I was the first person to edit the 2019 calendar, which I did in 2018. And it was actually a subscriber's idea. Someone wrote into Julie and said, wouldn't it be such a fun idea? Wouldn't it be such a great idea if there was a calendar? That way you can kind of look at it every day and enjoy it. And it's kind of part of it's on your wall, it's on your desk. So that's what we did. And for the first one, we focused on kind of celebrating the history of Sinister Wisdom and what had already been published by Sinister Wisdom. So the 2019 calendar was a collection of 12 cover arts from, all of the different issues that felt kind of representative of the journey Sinister Wisdom had been on and where we're going and looking towards the future. Something else that was really fun about doing the calendar too was thinking about how we could incorporate lesbian history, which is ongoing and so full and fun and earnest and radical and exciting, and how we could incorporate that into someone's daily life. So some of the things that we wanted to do and that we decided were including like a snippet of lesbian history on every single day in the calendar, which is a lot of work. That meant that I had to find like 365 facts to stick on a calendar in a really limited amount of space. So I'll just highlight some of the first dates that were included in the 2019 calendar. I mean, the L Word premiere in 2004, which was fun. The birth of Pat Parker on January 20th, 1944. The Roe versus Wade decision that legalized abortion in 1973. The first Lesbians Who Tech Summit in 2014. So you can see that there was a real mix of more contemporary moments and then kind of more historical moments too, which I thought was important to highlight and show. The first Dyke March, April 24th in 1993. When the Stonewall Inn was declared a U.S. National Monument, 2016, very recent. And then, of course, Sinister Wisdom's publishing schedule and July 1st, 1976, when the first issue of Sinister Wisdom was published. So it really ran kind of the gamut of different moments in lesbian history, which was a lot of fun. Some other artists that I was really proud to publish were T. Corinne, obviously. Grimes is a favorite artist of mine, GGG, RIMES, Lisa Rose, Vivian Ortega, Miyok Song Bruning, Sudi Rakusin. It was really a lot of fun to kind of think about all of the art that was already published in Sinister Wisdom and then tap into so many kind of contemporary artists, digital artists, photographers who hadn't heard of Sinister Wisdom or who hadn't worked with Sinister Wisdom before but wanted to, and kind of introduce them to the journal. So that was a really big highlight, and that felt really special as well. So the last thing that I want to do is share, before we kind of talk about future stuff, is share the first notes for a calendar, which is kind of a play on notes from an editor, which you'll find in every Sinister Wisdom issue. So I'll just read a little bit of a snippet from that. So Sinister Wisdom's 2019 calendar marks an exciting new era for lesbian time and space. This is Sinister Wisdom's first ever calendar. It represents Sinister Wisdom's commitment to combating the erasure of lesbian history and celebrating lesbian lives every day. Inside, you'll find more than bank holidays. Featured are quintessential moments in not only our own history as a lesbian feminist journal, but in wider lesbian history too. Lesbian pop culture, women's political actions and social movements, queer protests and triumphs, women-centric publishing, and the achievements of trans women all find a home here. Every month's image depicts the most vibrant journal covers published over Sinister Wisdom's 40 years, evoking the celebratory, radical, and sexy nature of lesbian writing and art. Together, they work to create an exciting mosaic of lesbian, creative, and political expressions. Like our sexualities, lesbians often experience time and space in queer ways. Our history is not typically taught in schools. Lesbian literature and communication survived and thrived in covert, often coded ways, making it harder for modern engagement and access. Often our histories are erased or misplaced before we even know where to look. Records can be misleading, archives non-existent, school curriculum's treacherous, especially in Florida, where I'm from. Our history can become tokenized, reductive, or relegated to 1 month of the year. Yet we know that lesbians have and continue to exist. We know that we have community. We see each other, speak our own names, make love, forge, and sustain vital spaces like Sinister Wisdom. This calendar is part of that same work, to reclaim and revitalize history through creative resistance, critical remembrance, and committed inclusivity. While working on this project, I also had the opportunity to consider the logistics of lesbian history. Where do I find it? Who makes it? What do I include? What can I not exclude? The Sinister Wisdom 2019 calendar is my offering, but by no means an answer to these questions. What you have in your hands is an imperfect, ongoing, and well-meaning effort. As a living piece of lesbian time and space, Sinister Wisdom's first attempt at harnessing all that history, all that queerness, is more like a point of access. Rather than a cohesive overview, this calendar is an invitation to join us as we lean into history. If we get the support and interest I think this project deserves, which is great, saying this like 5 years later, I'd love to have a series of Sinister Wisdom calendars for the upcoming years, and maybe even a special edition for Sinister Wisdom's 50th anniversary. So now, I wrote that in 2018, now it's almost 2024. We are really at that point, and it's come very full circle, and we're looking forward to doing a 50th anniversary calendar. Bella's going to be doing the next calendar, and it's all just exciting, and I'm thrilled that this project has received such a wonderful response and has continued on through multiple hands over the last few years. So thank you again, and that's all I've had prepared.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I am really, really so honored to be able to follow in your footsteps, and I'm so grateful to you for starting this project and for working so hard, because it's really thanks to you and thanks to everyone who followed after you in curating a calendar that I was really able to pull this together for myself. And I'm just so grateful to all of the work you did. And I loved hearing your notes from a calendar as I've read a little bit from my notes in a calendar when I was speaking to you earlier. And now, before I invite our first artist to speak, I do want to mention that two other artists from the calendar, Emerald Rapard Deniston and Kimani Johnson, were supposed to join us tonight, but are unfortunately not able to make it. Despite their absence, I'd still like to honor them, and I'd like to invite you all to explore their work on your own time. Now, though, I'd like to invite our first artist to speak, Mila Kuda. Mila is a caffeine-sensitive lesbian from LA with an unmatched enthusiasm for spiders. The former Youth Poet Laureate of the West Coast, their work has been featured on Teen Vogue, Button Poetry, Rookie, PBS, and Poetry Online. A two-time winner of the Charlotte Paul Reese Memorial Prize for Creativity in Poetry, she now lives in Somerville, Massachusetts, with her partner in the Seasons. Welcome, Mila.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to everyone at Sinister Wisdom and Bell for including me to be part of this calendar and inviting me to participate tonight. I'm so excited to be here, and it's really cool hearing about everything. And yeah, so I'm just really grateful. I'm going to talk a little bit about my work, and then, ending by talking about my piece that was included in the calendar. But basically what I'm showing here on this slide is one of a series of stick and poke poems that I have been working on for a few years. I've basically been collecting stick and poke tattoos, or photographs of stick and poke tattoos, that I either do on myself or on my friends, or photos that are sent to me by my friends or internet acquaintances. of stick and poke tattoos that are words. And I basically have collected that into a sort of word bank. And then from that word bank, I create poems. And the idea for these poems is that they are supposed to act sort of like bodily affirmations. Many of them very, very queer affirmations, because that's just, the nature of how my work transpires. This first piece says, to gay, queer, trans children, take no shit, pursue joy, end the crush, don't forgive the cruel world, spit on the cruel world. So this is sort of an example of what those affirmations can become, but this one in particular was written in mind for trans youth. For many years I worked as a teacher. A lot of the students that I've mentored are queer and trans individuals, and I think, with the words that I have collected, this is sort of the message I wanted to send, which is that ultimately I hope that every queer child has the opportunity to pursue joy, and also remind them that they don't, owe the world forgiveness when the world has been so cruel. So yeah, that is this piece. And then I can talk a little bit about the next one. This next piece I made for my Poetics of the Body class, and it is, it says, good night, cruel blues, cuidate pain, I love me tender, 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 love me gentle, wild, and strange, trans cowboy bitch, I'm holy, PS, risk the crush, chance more joy, please be still. Another example of a bodily affirmation, many of these poems, they exist as transparent files. So the idea is also I can take this image and edit it onto my body, or others can take this image and edit it onto their bodies. Just sort of affirming messages, because I think oftentimes the words that we tattoo on ourselves are already inherently, affirming words. Not always, but I think oftentimes the words that we choose to tattoo, that there's a permanence, there's a weight to them. And so, I like taking these words that, I've collected and seeing, what repeats. For instance, tender, the amount of people in my life who have the word tender tattooed on them, I find so interesting. So I wanted to, work that in. And then I can talk about this next piece, which is, I think this is, oh, it's loading for me. Yay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. This one is called Love Poem Made from Only Our Bodies, Part 5. And so, a series within this series of stick and poke poems, I take the tattoos that are only on my body and my partner's body, and I weave them together to form love poems. So this one reads, bare before the mirror, she trims my armpit hair. Very straightforward. This is a poem about my girlfriend trimming my armpit hair for me. And it's because I find that those moments of intimacy can, for me, become love poems in themselves. So that's what this poem is about. It's pretty straightforward. And now I can talk about this one. This one, just a little gender exploration poem. It says, queer she-boy of bitch blues, please don't elucidate me, I'm dream candy. So yeah, I feel like that one is pretty self-explanatory. And then I can now talk about this last one, which is the one that's included in the calendar. And this one is another love poem. It says, Love Poem Made from Only Our Bodies, Part 3. So this is another one of those poems that was just made with the tattoos that are on me and my partner's body. And it says, girl love is half crush, half risk, is the modern holy, the still strange stitched joy. And the idea for this poem is really, I wanted to challenge myself to create a love poem between our bodies that uses mostly whole words, as opposed to the poem I showed earlier, in which I, cut out little letters digitally and stitch them together to perform this poem. This poem, the only part that is the letters is the actual stitching, but everything else I liked to keep the words whole. And, it's about girl love, what that looks like, what that means to me, and also the risk involved in that, how you can crush and be crushed, the joy that can transpire, the holiness, the strangeness, and all of that. So this is the poem that was included. I'm so grateful that it got to be shown, and it was so cool receiving the calendar in the mail and seeing it. I'm so grateful. And yeah, that's all. Thank you for listening to me ramble on about this project. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to hear from Juno. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mila, for sharing that with us. I am holding up the calendar now. Mila has the honor of being our August, and you can see you can kind of see the work there. I guess most of you don't know this, but I went to college with Mila. I actually met Mila. Mila, I met you in like my first week as a first year. And so it's been really awesome getting to know you over these past 4, or I guess now 5 years.
So crazy.
Seeing you grow as both an artist and a poet has been so amazing. And I was really excited to include you in this piece because I remember when you started working on this project as a part of your thesis, and I remember you posting these poems on Instagram and just thinking they were the coolest thing, because how incredible is it to take the words, you know, poked into your body and then you know, use that to create a poem. I think it's the most incredible thing. And I remember when you were writing Body, you put a call out for, you know, if you have stick and poke tattoos, please send them my way. And I remember sending you mine, and mine are included in some of your poems. And that's just the most amazing thing. And I'm just really honored to be able to include you in this calendar, because I think your work really hits home this idea of radical creativity.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your words too. I love your words. I'm pretty sure that you might also be like the little flower in the Body poem too, if I am remembering. Yeah, so thank you for your words and your flowers, and also just, you know, including me in this and all of that. It's so wonderful to be here, and also to see, you know, you grow from the 5 years. It seems so crazy to even say that, you know, we've known each other now.
Of course. Thank you so much, Mila. And now I'd like to invite our last speaker, Juno Rosenhaus. Juno is a photo artist who explores themes of self-perception, feminist identities, and queer communities, and informed by her experiences as a Dyke-identified social justice activist. In 2020, Juno launched the Dyke Art House, a community-driven home and feminist collective for Dyke queer artists. An East Coast Dyke of West Coast experience, Juno is based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA. Welcome, Juno.
Thanks so much, Belle. And I'm just, first of all, Mila, I love the entire concept of that work. It's just beautiful on so many levels. And I'm so glad I got to hear you talk about it a little bit. I am just really just tickled to be included in the 2024 calendar, and just always, it just feels like such an honor just to be part of the Sinister Wisdom community, honestly. You know, the Dyke Art House, which I launched in 2020, is definitely my most ambitious project to date. There's more ambition in here somewhere, but we'll get to that at another time. But I also take portraits, lots of different types of portraits. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about those tonight. As you can see, this first portrait is a self-portrait made a few years ago. And like many have said before me, I take self-portraits to see myself and to see how I come through to other people and just reflect. So that's kind of that. This one in particular was shown in North Carolina, we were mentioned before, about 2 years ago, and it was printed on material, and it was wonderful to see it like that. Next slide. I also emphasize a lot of portraits on, of course, queer and especially Dyke and lesbian community. So these 2 images are in a period where I was kind of only shooting other Dykes and other queers. On the left, we have Anne-Christine Tedeschi from 2016. You might know her as one of the founders of the Lesbian Avengers. She's a journalist, author, and activist, and does not like having her photo taken at all, but she's a dear friend, so she let me do it. And on the right, Sydney, who I met in Provincetown a few years back. And I just love this image, the expression on her face, the tattoo and the colors with her shirt, and just that fierceness that comes through on this. Next, please. This image called No Lips Like My Lips is part of a series I did over a number of years called I Will Not Be Pretty for You, Vulvas Queered. And this is a collaborative project that people, I put a call out, and folks in 5 different cities that I focused on so far, which is the Bay Area, New Orleans, Chicago, Philly, and Berlin. Oh, I didn't leave anyone out. That's amazing. And so this was a way, you know, even in that, to say that even in queer community, we still, like many people in the straight community, you know, have been told things about our vulvas from other people, maybe from lovers, from friends, from our mothers, unfortunately, that stick with us and really cause a lot of damage and lead to a lot of shame. And on the other hand, lots of joy, right, comes from our vulvas, as we know. So I learned so much from this project, and I'm happy to say it's going to be finally get a little solo show in San Francisco next year, and I'm thrilled about that. But this was, again, these are portraits I consider like the others, and you can find more on my website. Next, please. Oh, well, hello. Putting Marks on Her Body 2020. So this was also part of the Vulvas Queered project in Berlin. And yeah, and look at that. I believe it's on the back cover of the current issue of Sinister Wisdom. So I am calling this, in my personal life, Sinister Wisdom Month, you know. So this, yeah, and you know, participants came to me with whatever their ideas were, and I worked with them to make their idea translate into an image. And this was one of them that was just super fun, and the only one I actually did with someone and their partner. Next, please. This one is, I call it Your Mother's Hand. I also did a portrait series on my mom, who's 85 years old, but I call it Your Mother's Hand because it could be your mother's hand. And we all deal with issues of aging, whether it's our parents or ourselves. Having just turned 60 last year, I'm really looking at straight in the eye. And yeah, and my mom, although she also doesn't really appreciate being photographed, she does love this image. So next, please. This is COVID distortion. So all of us had really interesting experiences at the beginning of the pandemic. And I myself took a selfie every single morning upon waking up. And I made that into a series. A couple of years after, I felt like I still wanted to do something else with them. So I came up with, this is just one example of a few things I came up with, which I'm sure many of you can relate to. Our brains felt weird, our hair looked weirder, and we just wanted to move on. So let's move on. And these are the last two. One of the just serious joys of my life is going to New York City every year and participating and taking photographs at the New York City Dyke March. On the left is Kay Turner. Some of you might know. She is an incredible artist and collaborator, Madonna lover, and as her t-shirt says, a vintage lesbian. And I always find her at the Dyke March. And also spoke with her a couple of weeks ago at a mutual friend's birthday party, and she's just an incredible person. And I love this image, not only for her and the t-shirt, but her hand gesture and just knowing what's going on behind her in the background, which is the end of the march where everyone jumps into the fountain and has a grand old Dyke time. Yeah. And then the one on the right is the image that Bell reached out to me about to include, that is included in the 2024 calendar. And I love this image for so many reasons, not only for the sign, but because it's so inspiring to see year after year younger dykes continuing to come out. And as I know from running the Dyke Art House, re-embracing the word lesbian. It has not gone away. It's embraced, Dyke is embraced, and we're showing up every year, new people. So it's a beautiful thing. And Belle can tell you a little bit more about why she chose that image. And I believe that's it.
Thank you so much, Juno, for sharing all of that with us.
Thank you.
In the same way I feel about Mila, I'm so grateful for you for allowing me to include your image in our calendar. Juno has the honor of being March, and there's her image there. Yeah, I chose Juno's image. Well, one, because I love Juno's work. I think you're a fantastic photographer, an amazing documentarian of the lesbian experience. But I was really drawn to this image because in the summer I did my internship with Julie. One of the things we talked about, and we talked about a lot of different ideas and projects and ideas for journals and ideas for calendars and ideas for all sorts of different things. But one of the conversations we had that really piqued my interest was the idea of looking at how issues of the lesbian identity and issues within the lesbian community are intricately tied to issues of reproductive justice. And I think around the same time I was thinking about that and having those conversations, I came across your image and I just thought it was absolutely beautiful. And I knew I wanted to include it in my calendar, and I wanted to include it at the beginning so it would be something someone could think about all year. And now we have gotten to the part in this event where we are going to open it up for discussion. I'm going to start with a question I have prepared, but for those of you in the audience, please feel free to ask questions in the chat as well. We'll have the opportunity to answer those later. Yeah, the first question I want to ask you too is, what role does creativity play in your life, both in sort of your everyday and then also maybe more deeply in your personal arts practice?
I could go. Well, first of all, I want to say, wow, Juno, I loved looking at those images and hearing you discuss them. It's so inspiring. Thinking about creativity, I feel like, it's something that I personally have been struggling more and more to make time for. If we're being completely honest, I think I've been working full time at a nonprofit job that requires a lot of creativity, because it's specifically a poetry nonprofit where I am pulling poems that are going to be taught to youth. And so I'm spending a lot of my days thinking about poetry really, really closely. And I mostly work in the written media. Most of my poems are written, and as you could see, these images are also poems. So something I've been really thinking about is how to make time for it. And I am always thinking of, there's a Mary Oliver quote, the wonderful lesbian poet Mary Oliver, who says the most regretful people on earth are those who felt the call to creativity, who felt their own creative power restive and uprising, but gave it neither power nor time. So I think about that all of the time, because I think one of the most radical things that we can do is find the time to really lean into our creative power, because creativity, even if it comes naturally, I think oftentimes it really needs to be nourished. It needs to be nurtured. And so I think that that's something that I'm really thinking about and practicing, is just finding the time to be creative and to really allow my creative ideas to marinate, but at the same time not try to, feel the pressure of always be creating something, and instead allow my thoughts to just, form naturally and answer the call when the call comes. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with that. I think it has been definitely a daily challenge for me to make time and allow myself to make time. It's so easy, as we all know, to get caught up in whatever it is, other things you're doing, whether it's emails or this or that, that run your life. You can't do without them, can't live with them, can't live without them. But I think what I've tried to do, especially with the Dyke Art House and other groups that I facilitate, which are way too many to count, and I'm trying to back that up, is to make space for people to do that. It's one reason my art retreats we do them on Fridays. Take that little chunk out of capitalism, take a half day off. There you are. Oops, drawing. Oops, and so that's really important to me for myself, but also my community. But I am also lucky enough to have creativity and art be my life right now. So very privileged to be able to say that.
Thank you so much to you both. I love hearing you guys talk about that. Especially, I love hearing you talk about sort of the role that creativity plays in community. I think that's something really important. And Juno, some of your work, you mentioned was about the pandemic. And I think, Mila, we were in college when our lives were disrupted. So I feel like At least for me personally, I think creativity is something that we can really use to revitalize not only ourselves, but all of those around us, especially when we think about that in conjunction with the lesbian identity. I think that's something really, really special and really, really unique. Something I have a question about that I'd love to hear you both speak about is something really similar, something super parallel in your work, is this idea of the lesbian body and in intimacy, especially sort of conveyed through the photograph. And I'm wondering if maybe you guys could talk a little bit more about that and how you use art as sort of a means for exploring that.
You want to go, Mila, or I'll go. Wow. Yeah. Intimacy is this thing that you only worry about for the first minute, I find, in a lot of situations. The body is that other thing we can't live without, can't live with a lot of the times. And I think it's another community project as far as I'm concerned. Again, you know, I find all my work is about the same, it's all about the same things, right? Making space for people in my community to feel safe and have an outlet for what they're thinking, what they're feeling, how they're interacting with other community members. Vulvas Queered was really fascinating in that everyone, literally to a person, came to me and said, you know, after responding to the call, and said that, you know, I've thought about this before, I've wanted to do this, and the only thing I haven't done was what you're talking about. And that just, you know, was so informative in terms of what people need in order to kind of do what they are feeling and manifest closure of an issue or opening of an issue. Yeah, I hope that made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I really resonate with what you were saying about how oftentimes I feel like a lot of my work is about the same things, and finding ways to just like reinvent and continue to explore a lot of the things that I'm thinking about. And I feel like the body is like such a major one because, you know, we evolve with our bodies. Our opinions about our bodies, our relationship to our bodies, they change over time. And I think that like it's something we feel so deeply because we live inside of these vessels. And I think with specifically the stick and poke series, I chose stick and poke tattoos because, as opposed to machine tattoos, stick and pokes that are done, you know, dot by dot by dot, because of the intimacy that is involved in a stick and poke tattoo, because it, you know, oftentimes takes longer. Some people say it hurts more, it's slower. You feel each prick going in, you know, as you get that tattoo. And also a lot of the tattoos that are included on the poems are poems that I've given to myself or given to others. And so there's like an intimacy even in that exchange, and that exchange in something specifically, oftentimes a word or an image that helps us love our bodies even more. And in loving our bodies can become easier to live in. And so that, you know, is a long-winded answer, but something that I really think I want to continue to explore and, you know, see what poems and what words I continue to find and how they can connect back to that ultimate mission of just helping us love ourselves.
Yeah, and just one more note about that. You know, I find it interesting how whether it's a body with no clothes or portrait with people fully clothed, it's just as intimate for so many people. Some people don't care, but that's a rarity. You know, it's you're getting close. You're stealing soul. You are all the other things that we've heard in photography in the past, especially when it was first discovered, if you will. But I think that taking fully clothed portraits is just as intimate.
Thank you. I love hearing you guys both speak about how you find art to be sort of this tool for both personal but also shared liberation, and as a tool to like really create these moments of self-love and expression and sort of an understanding of the body. I'd like to note that we have a hand raised. Phyllis Oscar, would you like to ask a question? I believe you can just unmute and share your question.
Great, thanks. Hi. I didn't realize that it had my name there. I go by Fly. So hi. Thank you so much to Sinister Wisdom for having this. Thank you to Sarah for starting off this project. It was really interesting to hear you talk about the development of the calendar. I have what I think is kind of a basic question, but I feel like, well, I guess to be honest, I want to hear how you to Mila and Juno articulate what does it mean. I also wanted to say I love your pieces, both the ones that you showed beforehand and the ones that Sinister Wisdom chose to include. But my question is, what does it mean to you to queer something? It's a phrase we hear frequently. And I have my own ideas about it, but I wonder, because I'm both a photographer and a writer, and work in both the queer and crossover spaces. So please, that is my question, and thank you so much for putting this on and for everybody showing up.
I can go. It's a really interesting question, and one that I'm not sure that I have too much of a developed answer on, but I think that, for me, like the act of queering something, a lot of it does come from those intimacies that we're sort of exploring. And I think that those intimacies can look like a lot of things, like an expression or a word that I find repeated. Like when I was talking about the word tender, for me, the word tender is a word that has been queered a lot in the past few years, because I've noticed more and more it's a word that a lot of the friends in my queer circles have used and has claimed for themselves, by whether that's like putting it on their body or putting that, on their Instagram or whatever it is. And so it's become something that I've seen my community specifically drawn to, and in witnessing that, I take note of it for myself. And so I guess that my answer is that the process, for me at least, of queering something is in noticing the intimacies, bringing them to light, and connecting them to our identity. And I'm not sure if that makes much sense, but that's, the start of my answer, and something I want to keep thinking about.
Thank you. That's great. And I appreciate that. And I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify something, and it's good for Juno, because Juno, you specifically said lesbian, dyke, and you've called you're amazing. I've been to the Dyke Art House in Philly. You all should go. You all should take a do a retreat there, solo or personal. So I'm from Philadelphia. So anyway, I just want to say, like, I'm Mila, unfortunately I don't know you that well yet, but Juno, I've been just impressed with you over the years. So I love the fact that, especially because there's so much eliding, disappearing of the lesbian, disappearing of the dyke, into the category of queer. So again, we talk about queering, and then you have also explicitly reclaimed and used dyke. So I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit more about that as well. Thank you.
That was a lot, Fly. So, so I'll try to make it quick. I know we're running out of time. So I have so much to say about lesbian, queer, etc. And I'd recommend everyone, if you haven't, to read Lesbian Death by Myreed Sullivan, to get a really deep analysis on that whole issue. In terms of the work, I think for Vulvas Queered specifically, and I'm going to throw in the chat here, and say why specifically for that project I used Vulvas Queered, because vulva, right? As you see here, and I defined vulva as an external genitalia of many females, males, and intersex people, right? So, and one reason I started this project because I think there was an assumption, or at least I thought there was an assumption when I started it, that these type of issues around shame, it seems silly now, but around shame or not being totally body positive or sex positive was something that only happened in the straight world. Well, that ain't true, not even a little. And So I really wanted to kind of capture that. And so what it means to queer something, it's kind of like, what does lesbian art mean? If I'm a lesbian and I say I am, then it's lesbian art that I'm making, whether it has anything to do with lesbians or not, right? That's my belief anyway. Agree or disagree. Queering it is taking out of the norm, taking it out of the patriarchy, taking it out of the heteronormative lives that surround us. And I think sometimes it's that simple. You can queer something a lot or you can queer it a little. And I hope that, at least with my photographs, that it's queered a lot and really speaks to my own community. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fly, for that question and for, sharing all of these amazing points with us. And thank you so much, Juno and Mila, for your incredible answers about that. We are coming close to the end of this event, unfortunately. So I just want to note that if anyone else in the audience has any other questions, we could take them now. And I also do want to ask both Mila and Juno if you would like to share maybe what is coming next for you guys in your arts practice. What does the sort of next lesbian art project look for you?
I'll just speak really quickly. I have a book coming out in 2024. I'm really excited. It's called Still, which is actually it's the first full word I ever tattooed on myself. And I think about that word a lot, both in the sense of I am still here, I am still around, but also the way that still can mean something that is unmoving, whereas the other definition implies a sort of continuity, and stillness is also something that is, distilled. Anyway, point is it's a collection of poems, a lot of them lesbian love poems, a lot of them about being a survivor, a lot of them about family. So yeah, you can check it out on the Game Over Books website. It's available for pre-order. That's like my main big thing is I have this book. I'm very excited about it. I'm very proud of it. And I'm so ready for it to be out in the world. But that's it. And other than that, I'm going to continue to have my queer art nights and enjoy, making zines and random shit with my community.
Oh, yay for random shit with your community. It's the absolute best. I have a lot coming up in 2024. So I have the solo exhibit, which will be at Strut in San Francisco. Vulva's Queered. I'll have community conversations around that. Also come and get your vulva portrait done on site in San Francisco on Castro Street and have those become part of the exhibit. So I'm thrilled for that. I'm also having the Dyke Art House visit the Bureau in New York City all next summer. And this will be a call out, first announcement here, I guess, a call out for Dyke artists over 40 to submit to. I don't know when the Strut exhibit will be. It's to be determined. Thanks for that question. But Dyke artists over 40, yeah, well, that'll be coming out for the Bureau. Also next year, I am going to start the Dyke Art House Collective portion of our program. It's kind of 3 phases that I envisioned this in, and that is the 3rd phase, which is Dyke's, again, specific to Dyke/lesbian artists over 40 to form an international collective around this. And that will include a 2-week, actually, I don't know if that's going to happen with everything else happening next year, but a 2-week residency-like collaborative environment here at the Dyke Art House. Yeah, so lots of fun stuff coming. And as Fly mentioned, thank you, Fly, I do offer solo retreats or duo retreats, and come stay for any amount of time. You can find that info on my website. So lots of good stuff for me. Aside from the Dyke Art House, I've started a series called Repair Shop, finally addressing my childhood as a child of divorce. Should have lots of interest in the general public. Yeah, so that's one project I'm working on, and a few others which will come up later, but lots of stuff. Yeah, thank you.
Just so much amazing stuff coming out of the both of you. Mila, if you saw me looking around, it was because I was looking for my copy of Dishwater Blonde, which I guess is not behind me on my bookshelf right now, but I'm so excited to hear that you are publishing a book. Congratulations. Juno, congratulations on your exhibit. I am so excited to hear more about that soon. Congratulations for everything happening with Dyke Art House. I'm so proud of both of you. Before we go, I do want to just say there's so many other amazing, there's 10 other artists in here who we were unable to highlight tonight. So please take a look at this, go celebrate all of these other amazing artists and all of their amazing work. This was such a fantastic event. This is a fantastic calendar, and Sinister Wisdom is a fantastic community. And I am thrilled to pass it back to Julie to wrap things up for us.
Thank you all so much. This has been so great hearing you all talk about this. I love hearing people talk about creativity and making art and all of those good things. I want to highlight this book, Matchmaking in the Archives, in 3 weeks in this same time slot at 7 p.m. E.G. Crichton and other folks who've contributed to Matchmaking in the Archives, which is also in a lot of ways an art book and how people make art out of the archive. We'll be having a discussion with E.G. and other folks from the book. It's a fantastic book and should be another great evening. That's on November 14th. On November 28th, we're celebrating the launch of The Highest Apple by Judy Grahn, with Judy here reading to us from it and other folks who have contributed to this new Sapphic classic that will be winging its way to all Sinister Wisdom subscribers. I thank you all for coming tonight. Please do purchase the calendar, share it with family and friends. And now, Max, are you ready for our dance party? We'll highlight you, spotlight you.
Come on and say the L word. It's the only chance you got to reclaim our name and not live in shame to try to improve our lot. Come on and say the L word. It's the only chance you got to stop the lying and denying. And come on and give it a shot. And everybody say lesbian. Everybody say lesbian. Everybody say lesbian. Come on, say lesbian. Now, the last time you said the L word, did your stomach take a turn? Did you look around to see if the sound was loud enough to make the ears burn? Did you say it in a whisper, or did you just say gay? Did your face turn red? Did you decide instead to save it for another day? Then to yourself say lesbian. Everybody say lesbian. Come on, say lesbian. Everybody say lesbian. Go on.
We know there are risks involved. No oppressed group has ever gained their freedom without risk. And no oppressed group has ever gained their freedom without a visible movement. So right here, in broad daylight on the courthouse steps, we want to take this day to announce the official launching of the Fairness Campaign, to work toward fairness and justice for lesbians and gays, and to see that fairness entrenched in city
Do you
law.
think it sounds like a rare disease, a perversion, a plague, a vice? All it takes is a little practice. Come on and take my advice, and everybody say lesbian. Everybody say lesbian. Everybody say lesbian. Come on, say lesbian. 'Cause if you can't say it, it's hard to be it. If you can't be it, they can't see
Lesbian,
it.
lesbian, lesbian, lesbian.
Tonight, if we all deny it, we're in the closet for life. For life. Or death. Silent equals death. Go on.
Violence against lesbians and gays has increased every year since the start of the AIDS crisis. We still fear losing our jobs. We are denied places to live.
Lesbian.
Say lesbian.
Lesbian.
Everybody say lesbian.
Lesbian. If we can't celebrate ourselves, who can?
Lesbian. Yes, yikes, yikes, yikes.
Like.
This is a significant time in our community and our visibility as a movement. We must be strong and proud and out.
The next time you say the L word, think of the woman
Hey.
next to you.
Hey.
Or your teammate
Hey.
on the side of the field, or the wise one that's helping you
Art
through.
house.
Think of the high school basketball
Art
coach
house.
or your last music
Guys.
festival crush.
Art
Or
house.
your ultimate erotic
Guys.
fantasy. It's okay
Guys.
to blush.
Art house.
Find a
Go
man,
to
look yourself in the eye
Philadelphia.
with warm regard. Say the
Get
L word.
place.
Say
We love
lesbian.
Juno. We love Mila.
Say
We
lesbian.
love Sinister Wisdom.
Come on, say lesbian. Everybody say lesbian.
Lesbian.
Come say lesbian.
Lesbian.
Everybody say lesbian.
Lesbian.
Come on, say lesbian.
Lesbian.
Everybody say lesbian.
Lesbian.
Thank you all. We'll see you in a few weeks.
So fun. Thank you everybody for organizing this and showing up and being creative.